In the 4 videos that preceded this one, we introduced motor behavior variability, loading capacity, and attention as 3 processes of change. Now, in our framework, the Human Rehabilitation Framework, we have 9 processes of change that we believe are the fewest number of things or fewest number of processes that account for the most amount of change or outcomes. And so the other process of change that we didn't mention, and we're not going to go into detail here, include cognition, emotion, self, motivation, general behavioral, and communication. And the idea here is that we are appreciating, again, these interrelated nature of these processes and the mechanisms underneath them, and then coming up with some sort of schema in which we can efficiently and effectively avoid missing things, and also make sure that we are able to really individualize the experience as a whole there. So bringing application just to those first 3 processes that we introduced, if we're dealing with a shoulder pain, an overhead shoulder pain, the biggest thing is, again, we tend to be in the rehab very exercise oriented, very intervention oriented as a whole there. And the reality is many people don't need that. There might be some people that might do really well with a simple rowing motion or some overhead pressing and basically building up general tissue loading capacity. And that's enough to be able to sort of deal with the work to rest sort of ratio that may be provoking, again, sensitization via immunological response or mechanical sort of response from a sensitization perspective. That might be enough. And that might be what they need. However, there are some people who don't need to have some sort of tissue loading capacity specific intervention exercise, and they simply just need to have their attention guided internally to realize that they can introduce some variability in their kinetic chain via these motor behavior variability sort of experiments in their activity and in their positioning, if it's related to positioning, that is enough to resolve it. And there's no need for an extra exercise. It's just having them pay attention to these activities during day-to-day activity. And we can move away from sort of this exercise prescription to just simply noticing how a person is reaching overhead or loading that shoulder. Now, the thing is that, as we all have learned, not everyone is that simple where it's just, we can direct their attention, whether internally or externally. We can use that to manage loading capacity, and as a result, again, maybe move a person forward. As we know, again, there are a lot of issues with people struggling with beliefs, which would fall under cognition, motivation, whether they may benefit from some sort of loading capacity, sort of exercise routine of some sort. The question is, whether they have the motivation to even be willing to adhere to anything you prescribe. And so the idea behind, again, this process-based approach and these ideas of scope, precision, and depth is that these are things you can use dynamically. So you may think you're going to go one direction, which is just give this person exercise, do some sort of manual intervention for modulation, perhaps refer out for some sort of procedure, whatever the case may be, but then realize again that I need to pivot. We all naturally know that we need to pivot. And what this framework does is it helps you to hopefully not have to do as much pivoting in advance. You do a better job framing the problem in advance, and then you also start to notice when this is trending in the wrong direction. And that's one of the things that we're really trying to promote with scope, precision, and depth, is it allows us to be able to understand, if we're targeting process of change rather than just trying to target a diagnosis, what we're going to avoid trying to make things worse. Because sometimes in our decision making, we may be actually promoting the potential for someone to have an adverse event sometime in the future based on these ideas and things that we're introducing. And the idea behind the framework is, how do you get ahead of that? How do you read that better? How do you better frame the problem so that you can hopefully avoid that, although there is never any guarantee. So hopefully you found these videos useful, and we will continue to build on these in the future.